Hey, what is up, guys? This is Comrade64. How you guys all doing today? So I'm back with another video, and for this video right here, I'm going to be talking about DC. This video is going to be DC related, and this video is basically going to be giving my thoughts on who are the Mount Rushmore of DC Comics and DC as a whole. Now, we all know that Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman are basically the Trinity, DC's Trinity. DC's main three, DC's leading three, DC's trio, DC's main trio, DC's leading trio. They are like the main three of DC. One of the first things you first think about when you first think of DC. Well, Superman and Batman, them two together, they're basically, the DC duo. I don't know if I want to say dynamic duo, but they are like the main duo. Like if it's just those two, if it's just like two characters, it'd be Superman and Batman, and if we were at the third character, it'll most likely be Wonder Woman. And so they have been like the leading three for pretty much a long time. And I actually do remember a mac and cheese commercial that they did years ago, featuring it was a collaboration with DC that featured Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, and that was my first introduction to Wonder Woman actually. And I do think Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman are a great trio indeed. I'd be down with to be seeing a DC animated series with just those three. Going on adventures and stuff like that. Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman are basically one of those best, two male and one female character trio that we see a lot in media. Other great trios are Ash, Misty, and Brock from Pokemon, Harry, Ron, and Hermione from Harry Potter. I guess you can also say Danny, Tucker, and Sam. Excuse me, bless you, to myself. From Danny Phantom, and also a couple others. I might do a list, of or a Knuckles rates video of best male, two male, and single female like trio characters. And also Power Rangers does also kind of feature that as well. Ninja Storm, Dino Thunder, Jungle Fury, RPM, and Beast Morphers. And heck, even Digimon Tamers, with Takato, Henry, and Rika, and Data Squad with Marcus, Thomas, and Yoshi. And also Ghost Games. I don't know the name of the characters from Ghost Games, even characters. I haven't checked out Ghost Game yet. I gotta check out the English dub though. So yeah, there are a lot of great trios out there where it's just two male characters and one female character. I did make a Knuckles race video of best female trios. I am working on one with, no Knuckles rating female trios. I am working on one where Knuckles rates male trios, and I'm still working on that. So you can be on the lookout for that one. But yeah, Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman are DC's Trinity, DC's main three, and I think there was like a comic with those three. So every media seems to have like a best amount of trios out there. Wonder Woman, Batman, and Superman being a prime example. Now, but what if we were to add a fourth DC character to the mix? Now, and if we add four of them, these four characters will be the Mount Rushmore of DC Comics. Now, who do you guys think should be the fourth pillar, the fourth DC character to be with that can hang with Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman and be up there with them? So here's a character I think should definitely be if DC were to add like a main four, being four, here's a DC character that I think definitely should fit in this role. But I think they are going to continue having Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman as like the big three, DC's big three. Kind of like how I think other franchises, have like a big three, like Shonen Jump, the big three with Bleach, One Piece, and Naruto. But if and now, some people will say like the big four if we were to add Fairy Tail, you know, if Fairy Tail was a part of Shonen Jump, that is, you know. But so I'm thinking like if DC were to have like add like a fourth character and have it be like the Mount Rushmore of DC Comics, what is one DC character you think definitely deserves that spot? Now, I know some of you guys are probably going to think Green Lantern. Green Lantern for sure. But to be honest, I'm going to miscorrect you on that. Absolutely not. Now here's a character that I think definitely deserves that spot. Not Aquaman, and not Shazam, not even Robin. It's, drum roll please, The Flash. Yep, The Flash. Now, why should The Flash be the fourth one, the fourth pillar, the fourth character, standing next to Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, and being the Mount Rushmore of DC? Well, here's the thing about that. I think The Flash has gotten very popular over the years. Thanks to some of the media it's had like the live action CW show. I think that show did help boost the character's popularity further, because I don't think The Flash was really. I think the Flash during like the 2000s. I guess I would say the 2000s, the 2010s. Like the 2000s, and I think the early 2010s. Before the Flash anime live action CW show came out, I think The Flash was in the same situation as Iron Man, Captain America, and Thor were, and even other Marvel characters. Where he was popular, but he wasn't hugely well known. I guess not popular, but not hugely popular and not hugely well known. Because Marvel at the time, Marvel during the 90s, early 2000s and such, mid 2000s, the only Marvel characters that were popular were Spider-Man, X-Men, and the Hulk. Those three pretty much kind of stood out from the rest of the crowd, from the rest of the Marvel superheroes. Spider-Man and X-Men were mainly popular because they had animated shows. Their animated shows were hugely popular and went on longing. I don't know if the Hulk animated series was very longing. I don't know, but I don't think but Spider-Man, Hulk, and the X-Men were pretty much the more recognizable Marvel characters. Now sure, Iron Man, Fantastic Four, they had animated shows too, but I don't think it helped boost their popularity and well-knownness. Iron Man became popular, thanks to the 2008 live-action movie, which helped boost the character into popularity. That movie did to Iron Man like what the live-action Transformers did for Transformers. Help boost this something character or franchise into being highly popular and more well-known in the mainstream media. The Michael Bay films, as much as people hate them, and I'll be honest, I'm kind of mixed about them. I still think the first one's a good movie, and everything else after that is kind of hit or miss. But these movies did help push Transformers into the mainstream popularity limelight. And that's pretty much what the 2008 Iron Man movie did for Iron Man. And Iron Man is now a popular character, and he was pretty much the face of the MCU. And Captain America and Thor, their movies came out and helped push them into the mainstream popularity as well. And the same thing with Black Panther and his movie that came out in 2018, and even others, But before that, Spider-Man, the X-Men, and the Hulk were pretty much the main lead popular pillars for Marvel, you know? And in a way, the Flash was kind of in a similar vein with them as well. But I do think now, recently, the Flash has kind of gotten even more popular. And I think that was thanks to the live-action show on the CW, which I think did help boost the character's popularity, like, not just, with diehard comic book fans, but also casual fans as well. And, now I do think, so the Flash has gotten a lot of media. Now, I guess you could say the same for Green Lantern, but, I don't think Green Lantern looks like it has that push, Sure, there was the live-action 2011 movie with Ryan Reynolds, but that failed horribly. And sure, The Flash had that live-action movie with 2023, with a certain someone who we shall not mention. He shall not be named. I know he goes by they, but, we're not going to talk about him. He's not mentioned just Dojo at all or anywhere. Yeah, the live-action movie, for 2023, unfortunately, didn't perform well at the box office, and it was a commercial failure. And yeah, it wasn't really a good movie, It had some good things in it, but it was kind of a mess of a movie, honestly. So yeah. Yeah, the movie did kind of suck. Well, it had some good moments, but overall it was pretty bad. And also, I do think we see more of the Flash in live action than we do Green Lantern. Batman, Superman, and even Wonder Woman have had a lot of live action versions of themselves. Batman has you know, Michael Keaton, Val Kilmer, George Clooney, Kristen Bale, Ben Affleck, and Robert Pattinson, all playing the live action version of the character. And also Adam West from I forgot, the 60s live action show, I think they're on the 60s, And Superman has had a lot of live action interpretations versions as well, Christopher Reed, Brendan Routh, Henry Cavill, and David Kornvisic, who played him in the movie that came out last year. I can't pronounce the guy's name. And Wonder Woman has had, her live action series, I can't think of the actress, and Gal Gadot, and, the DCU. And also, Flash has had like 2 live action interpretations, Grant Gust, and, in the live action CW show, and the guy who he shall not be named from the DCU, who unfortunately the latter, which version of the Flash was not received very well by fans, by people in general. So yeah, I do think the Flash is definitely the DC character that can stand up right next to next to Wonder Woman, Superman, and Batman, and being DC's actual Mount Rushmore. Now, and also the thing is, I think the Flash, the Flash is kind of feels like he's in a similar situation as Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, where he's a character that has villains, a lot of rogue gallery villains, a large rogue gallery, the Flash has a lot of villains, Reverse Flash, Captain Cold, Gorilla Grodd, Killer Frost, just to name a few, The Flash has a lot of has a lot of villains, just like Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, Superman has Lex Luthor, Metallo, who else? Who else? Toymaker, I think that's what he's called, something like that. Brainiac, and Lobo was also considered a Superman villain, but he kind of shipped it off to being an anti-hero, and he has no comics and all. Batman has the Joker, who we all know, Harley Quinn, Poison Ivy, Mr. Freeze, Bane, Black Mass. I think that's his name, Black Mass. The Riddler, Man Bat, Killer Moth, so on and so forth, And Wonder Woman has, Ares, Cheetah, Giganta. I was hoping that Giganta was going to be the main villain in the third Wonder Woman in the DCU, but unfortunately, that doesn't seem to be the case. Unfortunately, the third Wonder Woman movie is never going to happen. Unfortunately, I wonder if there were plans for one. So yeah, I do think the Flash basically has a lot of mainstream villains. Like DC's mainstream. Now Wonder Woman, Cheetah, Giganta, and Ares are the only Wonder Woman villains that I know. But I know there are others, you know. Still kind of bummed that we never got to see Giganta in live action, but we still are, just not in the DCU though. And Superman has, Lex Luthor and all, and Now the Flash, I think the Flash has, like Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman. I just thought right now has that one villain that's like, it's his actual main villain. Superman has Lex Luthor, Batman has the Joker. Wonder Woman, I'll be honest, I don't know who Wonder Woman has as her main villain. You can comment on below who it is. Now for the Flash, I think his main villain is definitely the Reverse Flash. I could be wrong on that, but I do kind of see it because Reverse Flash, he's just like the Flash. He has the same powers as the Flash, but Flash, he uses his powers for good, and Reverse Flash uses his powers for bad, evil, But, so in a way, you do kind of see what I'm talking about right now. You see, you do see what I'm saying. And, so yeah, the Flash, he has, a large gallery of villains. Rules gallery of villains. Green Lantern, who does Green Lantern have? So Green Lantern has Sinestro, and also Apparatus, whatever that guy is, that thing, Cloud Thinking, that was the villain in the first live action Green Lantern movie. I forgot what his name was, And there are other Lantern Corps, like, Star something, the character, Star Sapphire. Oh, Star Sapphire, Okay, sure, there was her, but, I don't think Green Lantern's villains are mainly highly well known as the Flash villains, We got to learn about, because the Flash villains, we got to see them, compared to the CW, But the DC character, Green Lantern villains, we don't know too much about them, unfortunately. We don't really know too much about, I don't think they have like more mainstream recognizable. They're more well known in the mainstream media, something like that, And also, I do think like the Flash. This is me. I think the Flash can basically be, DC's version of Spider-Man. Barry Allen or Wally West. Barry Allen. That's the Flash I'm most familiar with. I'll be honest. All the Flashes, I thought they were the same, but then I found out each of them were different. Barry Allen, Wally West, and the original Flash, the guy with the hat. And I know the Flash had like a live action show. I think it was a show or a movie or something. I don't know. So yeah, I kind of see the Flash as like, the Flash can be like, DC's version of Spider-Man. And the reason why I say that is because both the Flash and Spider-Man, there are some similarities between those two. Both of them are, young characters. Both of them, they're younger than most of the other superheroes within their respective universe. At least that's what I know. Both of them are characters that are always struggling, Both of them are characters that, went through a dramatic loss, losing a family member, Peter Parker with, Uncle Ben in the Flash, Barry Allen, with his mother, and those dramatic events, those losses that they went through, kind of helped shape them into the person that they are, the heroes that they are, that they will come to be, you know. And both of them are tend to be wisecrackers and make jokes a lot, and both of them seem like characters that young people can definitely relate to. They both are characters that myself, that I feel like I can relate to. Peter Parker and Barry Allen, we feel like we can identify with them. Okay, sure, Barry Allen, the Flash, yeah, he is an adult, but he does feel like he's younger than most of the other DC characters. He's younger than Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Green Lantern, whatever version of Green Lantern, either Hal Jordan or Jon Stewart okay, sure, there's Shazam, and Shazam's a kid, Billy Batson, Billy Batson. But, the Flash, Barry Allen, he does feel like that he could be in a similar role as Spider-Man, that young character that is always struggling, went through a dramatic loss that kind of shaped him to the person that he is now. Becoming a superhero, fighting crime. They both wear red on, kind of like I'm doing right now. Yeah. Now I know some of you guys can probably say, "Oh, Blue Beetle can basically take that role." Okay, sure, Blue Beetle can, but does Blue Beetle have like a huge rogue gallery of villains? Villains like the Flash do, And yeah. Speaking of rogue gallery of villains, like Spider-Man has a lot of rogue gallery of villains. Doc Ock, Green Goblin. I almost say Green Lantern. Yeah, Green Goblin. Sandman. Scorpion, who we're gonna see in the upcoming Brand New Day movie, Spider-Man Brand New Day. Electro, Shocker, Chameleon. Venom. Yeah, Venom, Mysterio, Hobgoblin, the Lizard. Yeah, and the Beetle. I think that's his name, Beetle. Yeah. So yeah, the list goes on and on and on. And I think Spider-Man and the Flash both can definitely be tied. Like every version can have like their own more popular characters. Batman and Iron Man. Superman and Captain America. Thor and Wonder Woman. And we can put Spider-Man and the Flash, So yeah, so I can definitely see the Flash as like the fourth character as part of the Mount Rushmore of DC Comics and DC as a whole. I can definitely see the Flash up there with Wonder Woman, Batman, and Superman, and them being like the big four, the leading four, DC's main four, DC's main quartet, a duo, Superman and Batman, a trio, Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, and a quartet, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, and the Flash. You see? So yeah, those are one of the reasons why I think the Flash can definitely would be the fourth main DC character, Sure, we have. I do think we have seen more of the Flash in the media, with the live action. The CW. Okay, sure, they may not look like there might not be much, but this again, like I said earlier, the live action CW show did help push the character into more popularity. Being more well known to the public. That show ran on for a long time, a lot of seasons, and became very popular. I saw a lot of people cosplaying the Flash, so that right there definitely shows, that show did have an impact and help pushing the character into more popularity. And yeah, and like I said, and also the Flash has like a huge rogue gallery of villains like Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. And even some of the characters on the Marvel side, like Spider-Man, So yeah, definitely for sure. And other characters in like, you know, like on the Marvel side, Spider-Man, Iron Man, I guess the X-Men too. You know, well, if you talk about singular characters, Spider-Man and Iron Man, yeah, they have large rogue gallery of villains. And I'm sure Captain America does as well, and even the Fantastic Four and, you know, Fantastic Four and so on and so forth, the Hulk and such, you know. And like, you know, that's just what I think. So you can let me know. Do you guys agree with everything I said? Say, do you think the Flash definitely deserves to be alongside Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman as like the main four? And do you see them as like the Mount Rushmore of DC Comics and DC as a whole? I know I do for sure because of everything that I mentioned. And yeah, you know, I do think it would be cool to see like the Flash promoted to being up there with all three of them, being the main DC pillars. You know, the main ones leading DC, DC's main four, DC's leading four, DC's, you know, leading four, main four, or the main four that are helping market the franchise, because, you know, anything DC related, you often think out of Superman, Batman, or Wonder Woman, and I guess maybe other DC related stuff as well. But you know, I can definitely see the Flash, you know, being up there with them. Heck, a YouTuber by the name Robert Storms, you know, he was actually on a live stream who are the Mount Rushmore of DC Comics, you know, and he kind of agrees. He says that it's the Flash, and I can agree with him, you know. I definitely see the Flash as like the fourth pillar, the fourth main DC character, to be alongside Wonder Woman, Batman, and Superman as the Mount Rushmore of DC Comics. Do you think the Flash does deserve to be up there with Batman, Wonder Woman, and Superman? You can let me know. Because Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman, they have always been and always will be DC's main trinity. Now, if they were ever to add a fourth character, the Red Speedster should be up there with them, and that's what I think. Red's the color. So yeah, I hope you guys like this video, and also, like, you know, who are the Mount Rushmore of Marvel Comics? I did saw YouTube shorts in there saying is the Hulk. This YouTuber says Hulk, Spider-Man, Wolverine, and Captain America, and I think I could see that. But you know, some people probably say Captain America, Iron Man, Thor, and Spider-Man. You know, that's what I was trying to think. You know, no, maybe I might do a video about that. Who are the Mount Rushmore of Marvel Comics? You guys you guys can give your thoughts on that. You know. So yeah, thanks for watching this video. I hope you guys liked it. You know, feel free to like, share, subscribe, and all that jazz. And I'll have more videos coming on in the future. This is Comrade64, signing out. Peace out, guys. Go DC Nation. Take it easy, guys.